Hey guys, what's up? This is Panzer Dragon, and today we'll be doing 5 mistakes made from low ELO players, and just going over these key points in depthly, and also giving examples of such points. And I know other people have done a similar video like this, but I just want to point out things that are very obvious to me and what I think the most common mistakes are. So hopefully this video does give you some insight and improve your gameplay. Do note that this experience is coming from playing in gold and platinum. Even then, I still think you can apply these things if you're bronze or silver too. So with that being said, let's get started.
Take a trip to my
Alright, so the first thing that I noticed when playing in lower ELOs is that their builds and build orders are sometimes just not optimal. 75% of the time I do see that people are building right, straightforward. An example is 80 carries, they go Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and then Last Whisperer. But I've seen people go straight from Infinity Edge to Phantom Dancer to a Bloodthirster when an enemy is building armor. Or something I've noticed is some people build Blade of Rune King on Caitlyn, when you should probably be building a Bloodthirster. And people actually go Merc Treads on support when you should probably be building something like Boots of Mobility, since most likely you'll be roaming around the map and helping your team while putting some wards down. Or people just literally follow build orders and don't adapt situationally. For instance, some people will build like a Chalice versus Yasuo when you should probably be building Seeker's Armguard. It's just adapting to certain situations with your build order, like when you're behind, build defensively, when you're ahead, build offensively usually, and following the most efficient builds for your champion. Or just don't build a Triforce on Talon or Hextech Gunblade on Italy. Next thing I notice is that people don't have a good sense of strategy. By strategy, I mean like have a good idea of how to win the game or what to do next and succeed at it. I mean, most players will go off instincts, push a lane and then rotate mid and play ARAM, but it seems like no one is instinctively taking action. There are some players who will shot call, but sometimes it's just like a bad shot call. For instance, someone will say, let's go Baron when we have 5 people on the left side, and even though all the people of the enemy are on the right side and the enemy has still 5 people up, the team will be at a disadvantage if they do team fight, since, well, they are under the pressure of being hit by Baron. But for that person who is shot calling, at least he is putting intuition into his shot calling and taking matters into his own hands. That person who is shot calling will learn what is a bad call and what is a good call just through sheer amounts of experience of having both types of calls. And also in like Challenger and Master, people know how to Baron control. This means, getting pink wards around Baron, baiting Baron, and basically depriving the enemy of vision over Baron. And it doesn't come often, but I have seen it when I'm playing on my friend's Smurf account, where the enemy has baited my team into going into Baron pit, and then they just collapse on them and get a good initiation. One thing I have seen, when people start playing ARAM going middle or bottom, is that they will push to the towers and they'll try and get the tower down, siege it, and poke whatever. But what they don't realize is that they will stay a linger too long and the enemy will start to initiate around their tower. And being around your tower, does give you a positional advantage. And so what ends up happening is the enemy does initiate even when they are behind and gets a really good team fight on the enemy team. And if you guys are wondering what you're supposed to do in a situation like that, well, it's either you try and find a pick before sieging towers, or you rotate to a pushing lane, or you don't push at the tower at all and just wait until something else happens, like Dragon comes up or Baron comes up, or even get Baron control. Unless you have a siege comp, then go for it, but it is a bit risky to do so, especially when you rely on your teammates to disengage and not get caught up. The next thing I noticed, and it's like 50-50 honestly with players, is sometimes mechanics. So first of all, what does mechanics mean? It's generally how well you do in laning phase, your team fighting positioning, map awareness, and just knowing how to play your champion and using his skills in certain ways. Alright, so generally a gold player won't beat a diamond player in lane, obviously, but there are some gold players who know what the fuck they're doing and can beat a diamond player in lane. Like, I've seen some good laners in gold, I'm not gonna lie, but they do, lack map awareness, where the enemy jungler is, and easily get caught out sometimes. But they do know their champion to a certain extent. But some people don't have the greatest mechanics and don't use their spells properly in certain situations. For instance, let's say there's a Xerath middle and he's facing a Victor, and then a Jarvan ganks for that Victor. What the Xerath should do is that if he sees the Jarvan EQ combo is going to hit, he should instantly flash and not get knocked up, and thus surviving the gank. But what some people do is that they will take the risk of trying to dodge it, which, sometimes does work, or just not flash at all and take the CC from Jarvan and take a beating from both of them and then flash right after the CC wears off, and then they'll probably be forced to recall, as opposed to burning a flash and then staying in lane right after, since he didn't take really no damage. Also, one thing I noticed was a bunch of people were playing Tristana and they jump in the team fight and then instantly get blown up. That's probably one of the common things I've seen. Mechanics are just knowing what to do in certain situations. The next thing I see that happens is that people tend to give up easily. Whether they give up in champion select because their team comp looks really bad, or they give up a death in lane. People tend to rage, go on tilt, or even start feeding because they think the game is lost already. But there's some things you have to realize when you're playing in lower ELO. First off, throws happen really often, like super often. I don't know how much I have to say this, but since they don't have the sense of strategy on a master or challenger level, then they will tend to not know how to win the game. And thus this leads to a lot of things like throws, getting to the late game where one team has a better late game comp. And yeah, I do find like these things do happen pretty often. Now let's talk about champ select. Let's say someone picks a champion and goes into their own counter pick. Usually the enemy who has a counter pick has the advantage, but this is gold, this is lower ELO. Even though they have the counter pick champion, they tend to not know how to play the lane right or to its fullest extent to actually counter that champion. So like when someone picks something really stupid, you have to remember that anything can literally work in lower ELO as long as the player is good and knows what he's doing. And let's give an example. Let's say your support plays Malphite. At champion select you might be wondering like, what the fuck, why is he going Malphite support? And then you probably have low expectations of this and you probably won't win. But you don't know that until you play with him in lane and see how he does. And so you really shouldn't be upset when someone picks a really weird champion. And yeah, just concentrate on yourself and don't go on tilt. The next thing I noticed is that there isn't a lot of wards on the map. Like there's actually a big difference when it comes to challenger games and gold games and how much wards are placed on the map. Like yeah, you do have your average support warding places with the Sightstone, and obviously the big places like Baron Pit will be warded, Dragon Pit, these key places. But honestly, the wards you'll probably only get in gold is from your support and people with trinket wards. These wards are actually key to success in solo queue because they make your team not get caught out and make self-based decisions and can react to whatever the enemy's movements are. That's why as a jungler it is so easy to gank every lane, and as an assassin it is easy to make picks. But honestly, when I play in challenger games, it is actually really hard. Everyone has wards everywhere, people have deep wards in your jungle, and the only reason I can make ganks in challenger is because people are constantly communicating where the wards are, and so as my job as a jungler, I have to avoid those wards and somehow get a gank in. If you are, say, a solo laner watching this video, please, every time you back, buy at least one ward, whether it's a green ward or a pink ward, I don't care. It'll help you to win games and not die. And my last bonus tip is concentrate only on yourself. Assess your own performance and how well you do in a game. Don't think about your teammates, even though how bad they did and maybe they were the cause of you losing that game. If you have a good score and are performing really well, you will eventually get out of your ELO and go somewhere higher. But some people obviously have the delusion that they are stuck, my team is trash and I can't carry. And for the people who are kind of delusional like that, just go look at your match history and look at your scores. Yes, maybe you have positive scores when you play jungle, but let's say that one time you did fail and your score isn't looking that hot, and so that kind of explains why you're kind of stuck in this ELO, and so it does kind of balance out, if you know what I mean. And once you realize this is how you can strive to improve yourself in not just one lane but 2 lanes. And for me, I do have a personal story that's kind of related to this. Basically in season 1 I was never under any delusion that I should be at a greater ELO than what I was at, because when I was in gold in season 1, I remember this one game I was playing Ashe, and all I remember from that game was I had an Italy support and she started to carry my ass, and like I saw myself, I was like kind of doing not so hot, but everyone else on my team was doing good. And at that point I said to myself, why am I in this ELO? I feel like I can't keep up with this ELO and I want to go back to silver. And once I realized that, I just want to improve myself so I can be on the level of gold. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope you guys found this video very useful, and yeah, strive to improve, and I'll see you guys next time.